Hello there, my name is Graham and today we're going to be doing a breakdown and review of Free League's newest offering, Colonial Marine's Operations Manual. This supplement has been on the fan radar for a while now, and with Destroyer of Worlds out to whet their appetites, this is a source and campaign book that could not arrive sooner. This book is really under the microscope to deliver the first campaign setting released out of the three promised in the core Aliens RPG rulebook, rather than the cinematic play we have seen up until now. All eyes were on Free League for this one, to see if they could deliver again. And from the fan reaction, it seems so. But have they? I've said more than a few times that I was sceptical if this system was robust enough to achieve a good campaign. What I mean by that is the sheets and the system seem to lack the nuance outside of combat. Questions like how downtime is handled and even simpler questions like development of character. We haven't seen anything in depth, only a few XP pips that can be gained for achieving very basic tasks within the actual missions themselves. These are then cashed in for skills or talents, and there is little much past that in the core book. I mean, it's less than probably 100 words on page 35 and 36, so I was interested in where this was going. But these are answered to some extent within. So let's find out how it played out. We open with the expectations of a new recruit being crushed by the experienced voice of a vet. The seasoned voice shooting down those dewy-eyed thoughts and explaining they are merely an extermination team for the most part, looking to make world safe for our own invading species, humans. Our narrator gives insight on how the enlisted are changed mentally and physically as you're worn down by this enlistment. There are no free meals or even air in the Colonial Marines. This traumatizing rollercoaster isn't a happy jaunt around the tourist sites of the galaxy. And he does go on a lot about the tinny taste of air. This is a great intro and sets some flavour for the rest of the book, which is sorely needed, for the next few chapters are a little dry and sterile. The history section takes you from the beginning of the 22nd century and spans about 80 years roughly, for active solar expansion in the simplified timeline, before continuing on with more recent events in the galaxy all the way up to 2184. And no, that is not an accident, and there is even a quote from 1984 at the end of the history section. I did roll my eyes pretty hard at that one. But there is a lot here, and it's pretty good information, even though it is broad strokes. GMs and players will get a lot of use out of it for reference and get them up to speed where they need to be to play in the Frontiers War campaign. It covers the major events such as why androids aren't trusted in combat roles and outbreaks of alien bioweapons and plagues. It tells of worlds that lie dead from forced exterminations that are still patrolled by colonial marshals to stop grave robbing, potentially bringing back New Earth plague. There are some fantastic settings in there, even if it is a little bit dry in how it is written. And it goes on to cover far more as the nations of Earth start to land grab and draw battle lines. The expansion births the needs for the Colonial Marines, which is only one wing of a larger standing military presented within this book. The main competitors being that of the UPP, and with the Megacorps in the mix for good measure. This history line takes you up to the brewing conflict of the Frontier War to date, and into the 7 missions attached to this supplement. Where the history section is indeed interesting and can spark a lot of imagination that will bring you into your own campaigns, it is written like a textbook. I would like to have seen reports from news organisations about some of these events, redacted transmissions, interrogations, commentary by Marines who were in some of these conflicts, testimony about rogue androids, rumours about megacorporations, something to break up the monotony of it and give us some immersion. This is an RPG. Where's the texture? Where's the grit? There is one glimmer of hope here in this section. There is a quote from a patron from the Oblivion Bar. We've been there before in Destroyer of Worlds, and this is what I'm looking for. I loved it. Stuff like this is great, and it feels like it was used more as we need something to fill this page break, and there's no deliberate effort other than using it sparsely like that. But then again, the layout is just appalling in this section. You've got large headings at the bottom of pages with like 20 words underneath and quotes at the top of the next page. It is absolutely bewildering, some of the choices of layout in this book. And yeah, that just gets worse. Anyway, onwards. We now get into the meat and potatoes of the source book, the organisation, and we get a brief layout of what the United States Colonial Marine Corps is. There's some iconic logos we've all seen before from some films, and there's the squad makeup of a platoon and what is deployed from a standard Conestoga class frigate. Some of the ranks are here as well, and the makeup of the squads and fire teams. The fire teams are pretty cool, and we have some new specialist units thrown in there that will be expanded on in the next section. And I feel this first part of this section should have been folded into the making of the Marines, as it is referenced there a fair bit, and it is only 5 pages, which could have been reduced to 3 if the layout wasn't so sparse. Then this section takes a turn and it moves over to other organisations with the bare minimum information of their roles in the frontier. It is mostly what you're needing for the campaign, and this will continue throughout, and it's only page 43. It was at this point I realised that it could be used as a source book, but everything is here to serve the campaign. This just isn't the definitive Colonial Marine sourcebook I was expecting. It's all about the campaign. Damn. I guess that is fine, but I'll get to why that is a problem at the end. We do actually find some of what I was expecting to find in this section squirreled away elsewhere in this book. Like the opener of the Frontier War campaign does go over the breakdown of the actual strike force which is on that campaign. And the systems and bases section is pretty well done indeed. It would just have been nice to have had this section either reference those or rearrange it all so it was a lot easier to read. Why is the information split up like this and thrown through the book, almost scattershot? Well, the developers have clearly labelled the first section of the book for players. It is deemed safe for their eyes, and the latter half is only for the GMs. Where in theory this does seem like a good idea, where you could split off half of the book and give it to the players and say, have at it, you are going to have to elaborate on some of them same things again for nuance that the keeper needs to know, and you'll ultimately have this problem where the information is piecemeal throughout the book. Ultimately, this should have been war porn, this section, and frankly, it was weak sauce. I grew up in 40k Codex, and damn, that's what I wanted to see. The absolute glory of the army laid out in front of you. And this is just paltry. Chapter 4 sees us looking at how to make a marine using the expanded set of rules from what we find in the core book. The basic archetype is taken and split up into 10 specialist jobs. It does, however, keep the officer as a non-com and the pilot from the main book as well, giving us a staggering 12 options to play with when we're using the Colonial Marines as a faction. These new sub-jobs are called MOS, or Military Operations Specialties, and are acquired after 6 months in intense training from the new recruits. To be clear, this creation process is done in place of the one in the core book for the standard Marine, with the rifleman option in this book being pretty much the same setup. There was some confusion on the launch live stream where the author himself said this was used after the first process was used to flesh out and continue the creation, where I think that would have been a cooler option, making the ones in the core book normal privates and this path expanding after the boot camp into a private first class. It isn't the case, and that is a missed opportunity for storytelling through the creation process. But I'm still happy with what we get here. There is a bit of a disclaimer about using AFV Marines, which are basically drivers, the pilots, officers, and the dropship crew chief. Their main jobs are to be the support role of any operation and are not truly involved in where the grunts go on the mission, but they are included here for completeness, which is pretty nice, and offers some options that are unique to things like downed crews and that sort of different starting style of missions. We have the new specialists in here and they're pretty cool, and we see some proper different options from what is the standard rifle team and gun team setups that we can see in the Aliens film. It is a pretty full roster. There is some overlap and repetition to the previous organisation chapter at the start, which this chapter wants you to reference for the structure of the squads. With that, the actual structure for the strike force and party is found on page 110 and a few pages onward. And there's some back and forth between these three sections, which I found very annoying. It should have been a single entity. Having some charts or standard platoon templates would have helped a lot for the GM to just fill out the rest of the platoon and offer the players perhaps some second creations to make backups that would also fit with the campaign. This would allow for a richer environment for downtime and storytelling. I feel a platoon sheet would have been helpful if included and would have helped significantly to show everything at a glance. So I made one. You can download it from the description below. During the initial creation, we quickly get into the weeds with ranks, and picking who is the commander is the first thing on any creation list here. However, this devolves into ranks is a title with little authority, stated on page 61, and refers you to forget the chain of command on page 119. Remember the signias and the rank informations are on pages 41 and 42, and this is again another bit of a annoyance about the layout. However, this is an army platoon, not a garden party. Rank is a conflicting issue that drives plot and story. It is one of the best things about the wartime setting, and it starts off all sorts of drama to tell the player to ultimately ignore it, in my opinion, is missing the whole point of the book. The system that Free League has been building as well also has built-in mechanics for ordering and manipulating people around. Command and manipulation skills are muted by this one comment, and there are several talents that can help you, pull rank being one of the best of them. All this adds up to the ranks being meaningless, and it's all for the sake of the player agency. And I understand where the heart of that lies. No one likes being ordered about and told what to do, and some people may find it to be even on the verge of bullying. But this is the Alien RPG. The franchise is built on authority figures forcing the protagonist to do stupid and ill-considered things. To ignore the rank and file change of command openly as a rule is heartbreaking. There is plenty of ways to keep the player's agency and still have ranks that have meaning. Being told what to do isn't the same as being forced to. The players can choose to ignore it, and they can choose how they go around their orders. These things may ultimately come back and bite them, but that is also part of the fun. There should be a shift in the ranks throughout campaigns, in the way it's played and how it pans out, with even the possibility of demotion, which would add a huge amount of mechanics and dynamics to this actual system. But that would be interesting, therefore it is never mentioned in the book. There is 5 new shiny talents given and the 10 Moss use these along with a large selection from the core book to create a fair amount of difference between the jobs. Some of those are even stolen from the careers in the core books that aren't the Colonial Marine, and all in all they are a pretty good addition. I personally like the remote, it is a really cool one, and it gives you some nice bonuses to setting up sentry guns, and there's that remote piloting of vehicles, which is always a very tempting one. But Hug the Dirt is perhaps the most interesting, as it gives you some flexibility in going prone, and is not just that obligatory +2 modifier. I would like to have seen some more talents like this that weren't just passive bonuses, that felt a little bit more useful in certain situations and really made the paths differ from each other. We are given 3 tables to add some flavour to our PCs. These are the events. This is a great addition to the book. Your Marines can earn talents, medals, injuries, and build up some backstory before they are put into the grinder, fleshing out a living history for them. However, it could have been so much more. I do love it, and I'm grateful for it being there, but having the also random tables is a little bit disappointing. This could have been a life path that was useful and used continuously in downtime for promotion and demotion, as well as earning medals, which, by the way, gives you in-game bonuses. I'd like to have seen some talents attached to those medals as well. So for me, it is a bit of a double-edged sword. It is cool, but it could have been so much sweeter. For personal touches, you are kicked back to the core book and all the good stuff that needs to be added. And I was expecting far more. A personalisation of a platoon, call signs, signature logos for armour, some examples for the squad's branding for themselves, the campaign markings, something that would put some humanity into the actual core, personalisation of armour and tags and so forth. Even the APC should be painted with symbols for the units, and the campaign should go ahead branded and everyone feeling good about themselves. But the book even tells you that no, you shouldn't brand anything, and everything should be bleak and miserable, and everything and everyone should look the same. The Making Marine section ends with a tasty list of items that your players will be clamouring to pick up. There's a huge choice of iconic weapons and fan favourites here, and we do get some new additions in the gear section, which is up next. The gear chapter is slim pickings, unfortunately. There are some very cool new items that is not to be underplayed, and we get some lovely options for the undercarriage grenade launcher, giving us baton, flare, buckshot, and incendiary rounds, and there is a bunch of new heavy weapons as well. But the gear is mostly weapons for the enemy of the campaign, and is rammed full of UPP and Weyland-Yutani weapons. I had to check the front cover on this one to make sure I was reading the right book, and yet there it is, the Colonial Marines Operational Manual, and yet this is just the Frontier War campaign book. In the launch livestream for this book, I did get to ask the question answered by the author, stating that did I want to see stuff I've seen before, or did I want new stuff, when I asked why the iconic weapons of the pulse rifle and the smart rifle are not in here. Oh, by the way, everything else is not in here either, the incinerator units or anything like that. And that is a fair answer, I suppose. These items are in the core book, and I would love some new things. But do you know what else is in the core book and in Destroyer of Worlds that we've seen before? A fair amount of this vehicle weaponry and even some of the UPP stuff. We've seen this before. It's, I mean, you're reprinting pages here. Come on. Including the AK-40-47, which is in all 3 supplements now. You would like to think that the Colonial Marines Operational Manual would have the Colonial Marines Operational Manual in it. There's about 20 pages of this stuff from the core book and other places that could be stripped out in favour of the Colonial Marines assets, and Gasca even said that he had to strip out about 50 pages of stuff just to make everything fit in the 352 page book. And that, to me, is frustrating. At least you're going to give me the page references in the core book for the pulse rifle and other things, aren't you? Or an index that would have them, that'd be cool. That's right, this book, this sexy beast, has no index. And to that end, I made an exhaustive index for my players, which is in the description below. The Colonial Marines do fare a lot better in the vehicle section, if I'm very honest. We get the Stinger, we get the Bearcat, we get a few variants of Ridgeways and Cheyennes. There's also a new ship type and a Aerofighter as well. So we end on quite a nice note, and it's really a bit of a mixed bag. But to be honest, I'm starting to question my own sanity with this book's layout, as any players looking at this gear section, and yep, it is in the player section of the book, will pretty much know what factions and loadouts their enemies will have during the campaign. Not only that, they will also see some pretty new tasty things for the UPP, like the Kremlin ship. On top of this, it would be nice to get some actual layouts for these new ships' interiors. It is very frustrating to get these new ships and leaving all the heavy lifting on the GMs and fans to add ourselves. This is a potential mess of doing something really special and having a definitive guide to everything Colonial Marine, and it is just a bit of a shame. And so we get to what is labelled the Marine Campaign. This is for game mothers' eyes only, and ironically has some of the best source material in the book. We get to find out that our Marines are joining the famous 33rd Marine Assault Unit, or MAU, a term not used until now, and they are part of this legendary unit which is called the Gunslingers. This is pretty much all you are told about this unit and its history, and it could have been a great example to be giving to the GMs and the players for how a platoon would look in the making of a Marine section. But we do get some numbers to tell us that this MAU is made up of 2,200 people, and we get a breakdown of its elements as well. Fantastic! This is really cool. Why isn't it in the organisation section? We get a brilliant look at the Conestoga frigate, the USS Tambaitam, with some of its species mapped out. It doesn't really show you where these species are on the actual ship, and we are left to connect the dots, leading to the dreaded question from your players is how all this fits together. But overall it's pretty cool, and this is what I expected the whole book to look like. This sort of level of depth and detail and interest. We find out a little bit more about this ship and some of its crew as well, which are some of the top brass NPCs, as well as 4 fodder backup characters, which are not quite as fleshed out as pre-gens, but I guess they'll do. The latter part of this section, we get some combat procedures, which are some of the more useful tools for the GMs to employ and give you that more marine-like experience. If I'm honest, this book should have a basic training guide on tactics for the players to learn how these things work. And I would recommend the Colonial Marines Technical Manual to cover this entirely. This 26-year-old book is still alive and kicking, and is still some of the best Colonial Marine sources out there. Beyond that, there is some missions, and we get a list of 13 classic mission modes. These are foundations that can be built on by the GM. And one of the nicer elements here is there is also an addition of 7 complications to be used in these generic scenarios, should you wish to link them into the main plot of the Frontier War. So that is very nice indeed. And then we get to downtime. Downtime is pretty disappointing, and it doesn't go much further than the main core book. We get 2 tables of very generic outcomes that you can roll on as part of a group activity if you're not spending your pips to gain those sweet skills and talents. There's no triage, there's no recovery, there's no salaries for any of these positions, there's no bribe or military police, there's no brigs or penal colony additions, there's no secret clubs, there's no substance abuse, there's no problems at all in the Colonial Marines. The downtime is just very plain. I'd have liked to have seen a lot more here, and there was an opportunity to add customizing weapons and upgrading things, finding contraband and hiding all these things, and getting demoted for doing such devilish activities. Sure, we can all do this ourselves as GMs and players, but it would be nice to be backed up by mechanics that mattered. We could have added prosthetics here as well. This is a hot topic right now, and you know that more than one characters going to the limbs lopped off. This is a ripe world in the right time to add this to these books. Prosthetics should be a big part of the Aliens franchise. We've got synthetics, and we have, well, people who go on dangerous missions all the time. It is a missed opportunity all in all, and I was very, very sad with this. On to Chapter 7, we delve deep into the playground of the Frontier Wars, and there are 19 entries here describing where you'll be playing this campaign. There is a different map in the inside cover of this book, and we're going to have to play Where's Wally to find most of these things, but most of them are there, and it's nice to see that you have updated the map to include these. This is one of the better sections of the book, and there is even flavour text and a lot of side notes from Mother, which breaks it up a bit and is exploring some very cool worlds. One of my favourites is the Skyfire Down facility, which it is another colonial penal system, and it is very cool indeed. It does even go on to say if the players are bad and they are court-martialed, this is where they'll end up, which kind of makes me think that you should have probably expanded on this a fair bit more and even had something like, martial police in the book. But it's nice to have it in here anyway. I wish we got some maps for some of these places as well and some extra info, as it's all very broad stroked and there's only a few worlds which have been fleshed out in totality, and these are ones which will be touched on for the missions. Arcturus is one which is really well polished, and there's a large section on its inhabitants as well. This is all new material from a few lines from the film, and I'll go over most of it in depth when we get to the mission breakdowns. Chapter 8 sees us looking at some of the black projects which we'll be touching on in the campaign. There's nothing outrageous here, with some stock rip ideas of Artificial Wombs and the Project Berserker, along with the Project Life Force and the UPP equivalent shadow operation Dark Star. The artificial wombs are quite cool, and as a massive fan of Above Space and Beyond, I love the idea of using these guys as PCs as well. These overly loyal VAT-grown soldiers are stronger than usual and not quite so witty. So how these plays on the table, I don't know yet, but we'll find out in time, I'm sure. I'm very excited to see tanks. The Berserkers are basically 40k dreadnoughts. Using the loaders as frameworks, Marines have to be connected and can't get back out once they've been wired in. I would say that this is a great option if a Marine gets chopped to pieces. Offering them the Berserker suit is a nice reward, but again, it will ultimately cause some more problems as the guy inside the suit is constantly having to stay outside and sidelined for his own thing, which is a huge headache for the players and the GMs to have him going off solo or not being allowed to enter buildings, for example. Most of this section is given over to Project Life Force and Darkstar, however, which by now you should be quite familiar if you've been playing the other supplements of this system. It's cool, it's the most of the actual campaign, so this is good stuff in all. But yeah, I'd like to see a few more of Dark Project. They're pretty cool. I'm excited for the other campaign books, which will probably expand on this sort of Weyland Yutani crazy Black Project nonsense. It's a very nice bit of flavour indeed. Chapter 9 is the start of the campaign proper, with all the prep and background information to this point. A nice primer for this epic journey of 7 missions and 7 side missions to come. I'll be going over each in its own video and going over the meta plot and the campaign prep as well. So it is here on the brink of war. I leave it. In conclusion, it is shaping up to be a nice campaign book. There is a lot of stuff and intrigue here to take the players through them 7 missions. But it should have been named the Frontier Wars from the beginning. This is not a Colonial Marines Operations Manual at all, and it is a big misnomer. They had an opportunity to make a one-stop shop for everything Colonial Marines and nothing else, and I feel that it should have been better as 2 products, doing that and the Frontier Wars as is. They say there wasn't enough room to put all the cool stuff in, and there's a lot of wasted space when you look at the sparse layout and the reprinted UPP junk. So it's hard to see why they didn't split these into two actual books, with the source book being a reference point for any scenario and campaign going forward, and it would stop any issues with reprinting the Colonial Marine stuff and everything else as well. And while we're on it, just give the UPP a book as well. Just give them a source book. It just make everything so much simpler. They don't have to be long, like maybe 60 pages each, and would be sorted. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me. The biggest disappointment takeaway was the downtime being so surface level, along with a lot of the options as well. There's just no depth and colour and like character to this. It is very uniform, it is very totalitarian, and it is very, very simple. However, we'll see how we get on in that campaign, and I am looking forward to it. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I know this one will be a little bit spicy and there'll probably be a lot of disagreement with it. Feel free to stick those comments below and we can start the discussion. And with that, I shall see you next time.